It's Lauren.
And it's Brittany. And welcome back, our Killer Queens and Kings,
to Killer Vacations Podcast. Listen, I was doing better. I was sounding better, and I feel like every time we go to record, I start to sound worse and worse.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I never hear you sound better.
I sounded better earlier.
I don't know.
But I'll be going to the doctor this week, so...
Yes, thank God.
Don't worry, guys. By the time you hear this, I should have already been to the doctor.
Yeah.
And hopefully you won't have too many more of me sounding like this.
So just hang on. Hang in there with us.
But...
in our laryngitis.
Yeah. But we are bringing you the bonus episode today. And to refrain from hearing me so much, I'm going to make Brittany read my scary stories.
Yay!
So, happy Halloween month, and hope you're ready to get scared.
Be spooky.
Ooh. All right, do you want mine or yours first?
We could do mine.
Okay.
All right, so... All right, so my first scary story is called A Mother's Love, and it goes a little something like this. Some people actively go out looking for ghost encounters, and every once in a while they find one. When Kevin was a teenager, he and his friends had heard about a dangerous turn on the nearby highway that caused many accidents over the years. It was now haunted. The most well-known story was of a mother who took her own life after her son had crashed his car and died there. It was said around town that her ghost remained at the deadly turn to protect people from ending up like her deceased child. Kevin and his friends decided to put that theory to the test. At night, Kevin drove his friends out to the highway. When the group of boys arrived at the turn, they pulled over. They brought a bag of flour with them and proceeded to sprinkle the white powder on the road, the grass, and the car. The idea was to get footprints to prove that the ghost was indeed real. The boys hopped back in and began to take the car around the turn. Kevin accelerated faster and faster, and thump! The car came to an abrupt halt as if someone had slammed down on it with their own two hands. They immediately got out of the car and saw two woman-sized handprints in the white flour on the hood.
Is this Crybaby Bridge?
No.
Oh.
That was it.
What?
That was the story.
That sounds like Crybaby Bridge story.
Yes, in our hometown.
Yeah.
But except this time it's baby prints on the car.
Oh.
So Crybaby Bridge is where like a woman had lost her baby.
Yeah.
And if you stand over the bridge and you say,
yeah,
I got your baby.
Yeah.
She comes back, or the baby comes and you see baby footprints and stuff all over it. So that was just a little creepy story to get us started. And then now my other one.
Do you want to read mine?
Yeah. All right. So this is Lauren's, and it's called Don't Turn on the Light. Do you like this story?
Yeah, hang on. I wonder if there's a... No, wrong one. Hang on. No, wrong one.
Oh, I like it.
I don't remember that.
Me either.
Well, that was interesting. Okay, continue.
All right. So, don't turn on the lights. Why is the very first sentence got to have a weird word in it?
Let me see.
What the hell? You know I can't read.
Commandeered.
Commandeered. What's that mean?
To take.
Oh, okay.
She commandeered the room in the basement. She took the room in the basement.
She took the room in the basement of her dorm as soon as she realized she would have to pull an all-nighter in order to prepare for tomorrow's final exam. Her roommate, Jenna, liked to get to bed early, so she packed up everything she thought she would need and went downstairs to study. And study, and study some more. It was 2 o'clock when she realized that she'd left one of the textbooks upstairs on her bed. With a dramatic sigh, she rose and climbed the stairs slowly to her third floor dorm room. The lights were dim in the long hallway, and the old boards creaked under her weary tread. She reached her room and turned the light and turned the handle as softly as she could, pushing the door open just enough to slip inside so that the hall lights wouldn't wake her roommate. The room was filled with a strange metallic smell. She frowned a bit, her arms breaking into chills. There was a strange feeling of malice in the room, as if a malevolent gaze were fixed upon her. It was a mind trick. The all-nighter was catching up with her. She could hear Jenna breathing on the far side of the room, a heavy sound, almost as if she had been running. Jenna must have picked up a cold during the last tense week before finals. She crept along the wall until she reached her bed, groping among the covers for the stray history textbook. In silence, she could hear a steady drip, drip, drip sound. She sighed silently. Facilities would have to come to fix the sink in the bathroom again. Her fingers closed on the textbook. She picked it up softly and withdrew from the room as silently as she could. Relieved to be out of the room, she hurried back downstairs, collapsed into an overstuffed chair, and studied until 6 o'clock. She finally decided that enough was enough. She slipped upstairs now. She could get a couple hours sleep before her 9 o'clock exam. The first of the sun's rays were beaming through the windows as she slowly slid the door open, hoping not to awaken Jenna. Her nose was met by an earthy metallic smell a second before her eyes registered the scene in her dorm room. Jenna was spread, eagled, on top of her bed against the far wall, her throat cut from ear to ear, and her nightdress stained with blood. 2 drops of blood fell from the saturated blanket with a drip-drip noise that sounded like a leaky faucet. Scream after scream poured from her mouth, but she couldn't stop herself any more than she could cease wringing her hands. All along the hallway doors slammed and footsteps came running down the passage. Within moments, other students had gathered in her doorway, and one of her friends gripped her arm with a shaking hand and pointed a trembling finger toward the wall. Her eyes widened in shock at what she saw when she fainted into her friend's arms. On the wall above her bed, written in her roommate's blood, were the words, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" Oh my gosh, that's freaking scary.
What?
Okay, so first of all, that's why she was smelling that metallic smell.
Yeah.
Because it was blood.
Yeah.
Well, how about this one? This is called No Trespassing. It's a Texas scary story. Peggy and her boyfriend Tommy were driving down a lonely stretch of highway at dusk when a thunderstorm came crashing down on them. Tommy slowed the car and they crept their way past a formidable abandoned house. Plastered all over the fences and trees were no trespassing signs. Okay, so we don't go there.
Right.
A mile past the house, the car hydroplaned. Peggy screamed as the car slid off of the road, plunging down into a gully. The car slammed into a large boulder, throwing Peggy violently into the door before it came to a rest under a pecan tree. Her head banged against the window, and a stabbing pang shot through her shoulder and arm. Tommy turned to her. "Are you all right? You're bleeding." "Arm, shoulder, feel bad," Peggy managed to gasp. Tommy glanced cautiously at her right arm. "I think your arm is broken," he said, and he tore a strip off his shirt and pressed it to the cut on her head. "I'm going to call for help," he said when it became obvious that the bleeding was not going to stop right away. But neither of them had their cell phones. "That house we just passed will have a phone I can use," Tommy said. Okay. Peggy's eyes popped wide open at this statement. Despite her pain, she remembered the creepy abandoned house. "Stay here. A car will come." I can't stay, Peggy, Tommy said. It could take hours for another car to come, and you're losing too much blood. He tore another strip off of his shirt and placed it gently on the cut on her head. When he went out and retrieved a couple of blankets from the trunk to cover her with. I'll be back as soon as I can. He raced out into the storm, shutting the dented car door behind him. Peggy drifted in a kind of daze. Something at the back of her mind was making her uneasy. She slid down on the floor and put her head on the seat, completely covering herself with the blankets, head and all. Feeling safer, she allowed the weariness caused by the wounds to take over and fell asleep. Peggy wasn't sure what woke her. She had a beam of light shone briefly through the blanket. Did she hear someone curse outside? She strained eyes and ears, but heard nothing save the soft thudding of the rain, and no light shone through the blanket now. If Tommy had arrived with the rescue squad, there surely would be a noise and light and many voices. But she heard nothing save the swish of the rain and an occasional thumping noise, which she put down to the rubbing of the branches of the pecan tree in the wind. The sound should have been comforting, but it was not. Goosebumps crawled across her arms, even the broken one, and she almost ceased breathing for some time as some deep part of her inner mind instructed her to freeze and not make a sound. You know when you get scared and you're like...
Yeah.
She did not know how long fear kept her immobile, but suddenly the raw terror ceased, replaced by cold shivers of apprehension and a sick coil in her stomach that had nothing to do with her injuries. Something terrible had happened, she thought wearily, fear adding yet more fatigue to her already wounded body. Then she scolded herself for a ninny. It was just her sore head making her imagine things. Somewhat comforted by this thought, she dozed again, only vaguely aware of a new sound that had not been there before. A soft thud sound, as of something gently tapping the roof. Thud, thud. Pattering of the rain. Thud, thud. Silence. Sometimes she would almost waken and listen to it in a puzzled manner. Thud, thud. Patter of rain. Thud, thud. Had a branch dislodged from the tree? Peggy wasn't sure how long she'd been unconscious when she was awakened by a bright light blazing through the window of the car and the sound of male voices exclaiming in horror. A door was wrenched open and someone crawled inside. She lifted her head and looked up at a young state policeman. "Miss, are you all right?" he asked, and then turned over his shoulder to call for help. Peggy told the officers her story and begged them to look for Tommy. They deftly avoided answering her and instead called the paramedics. As the paramedics carried her carefully up the slope of the incline, Peggy looked back at the car and saw a grotesque figure hanging from a branch of the pecan tree. For a moment, her brain couldn't decipher what she was seeing in the bright lights of the police car parked at the side of the road. Then she heard a thud sound as the foot of the figure scraped the top of the totaled car, and she started screaming over and over in horror. One of the police officers hasted to block her view, and a paramedic fumbled for some Valium to give her as her mind finally registered what she had seen. Tommy's mangled dead body was hanging from the pecan tree just above the car, and nailed to the center of his chest was a no trespassing sign. Oh my gosh. Did you know what
scary?
this? Did you read this before?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is freaky.
Right?
So that is crazy because she thought he was alive and he was going to get help, and this whole time he's dead.
Yeah. But the fact that the sign was nailed to him
was weird.
Scary.
Like they passed that house and that's what happened.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the last creepy story that I have, and it's actually an urban legend.
Ooh.
So it is called the 1962 Halloween Massacre. Okay, we have a visitor today, if you guys haven't already noticed. My nephew is here, and he is just begging to tell you guys what his name is. So you can introduce yourself
No, I want to.
and say your name.
No, I wanted to sit with you.
Okay. You can sit right here. All right, so this is the 1962 Halloween Massacre. In 1962, it was very common for partygoers to create their own Halloween masks from plaster, burlap, fabric, and paint. If you were really strapped for cash, you asked your neighbor if they had any chicken wire left in his shed and you used paper mache.
Interesting.
In 1962, a fairly small town was about to see its worst event in history 20 years before it and well over 20 years after it happened. We're talking maybe 30 kids in the graduating class kind of small. The high schoolers who did decide to meet up at Marla's house that year all knew that Marla's dad was a drinker and that it'd be easy to pull up some cheap beer from her fridge. Well, we always do that.
Yeah.
Especially as she made a point to whisper by the lockers to anyone she'd invite that her old man would be out of town for Halloween this year and that it'd be real nice if you stopped by. She would repeat that phrase to anyone in the hall. So that Halloween night, a bunch of kids from high school made their mask and headed out to Marla's for the evening. They did regular teenager rowdiness, dragging the boulevard in Kenny's mother's coupe, or throwing water grenades at neighborhood mailboxes. Back when it was Ellington's water grenades, nowadays everyone just calls them water balloons. The trick-or-treat children stopped knocking at the door around 9:30. More than one bottle was laying around open at that point. Tommy had a new Polaroid that had a flash and everything as he asked everyone to gather together to get a photo. Everyone piled in from the floor to way up high wearing their mask, but there was one person in a black hooded mask reminiscent of an executor in the middle of the crowd. No one would realize how important that image of that one person would be until the next day.
Oh my gosh.
The evening was getting later, and this is where many accounts get real fuzzy. Someone described how they saw a dowel rod.
That sounds familiar.
A dowel rod propped onto the top half of the window on the outside, placed real quietly. They thought it was strange, but brushed it off. Some say Marla and Tommy were in a bedroom down the hall and were first found by Karen. Their throats slit deep like and gushing out blood in small spurts down their front. Karen was about to scream, but felt the knife come in her back so suddenly that she lost all her breath from it puncturing her right lung. We only know this from where they found her and how she was described during the autopsy. But at that point, someone in the front room saw Karen when she dropped down. Screams erupted and the entire house broke into a panic. Rushing for the front door, they found it jammed. A large porch chair had been propped under the handle and it wouldn't budge. The windows blocked by the wooden dowel rods. The man in the black hooded mask swung the knife around expertly. Someone said he was being very careful as to how he held it, as it was slick with blood, almost as if he'd done something like that 1,000 times. Frankly, when you live in a small town like ours, growing up on a farm, it isn't uncommon to know how much pressure to apply to a pig's throat, or the angle needed to snap a chicken's neck. But this man was something else. They say he had no hesitancy when he gutted Marla, or when he was able to finish off 3 other victims before he took his leave through one window he'd left open. Police found Tommy's photos, and a couple of days after that, the mask itself was found on the side of the road heading out of town towards the mountainside. But to this day, no one knows who that was.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
1962 Halloween Massacre. So it's like they had a Halloween party and someone that wasn't invited ended up coming and killing everybody.
That's scary.
I know.
That was our scary story bonus for you guys
Yeah, we're going to try to do a bonus every week.
for the month of October.
Yeah, for the month of October, it's just going to be full of like scary stories, Halloween stuff, creepy things. So if you have any ideas, let us know. Or if you have a scary story that you would like for us to tell,
Send it to
send it
us
to us.
at killervacationspodcast@yahoo.com.
Yeah.